America was a nation founded on the principles of the Enlightenment, heralded as a shining city upon a hill, a beacon of freedom in a world of autocrats. Since that founding, however, things have changed. By the 21st century, it was a nation grappling with deep divisions, dominated for over a century by the Democratic and Republican parties, each pushing their own ideological worldview and conspiring for power. The government has become more and more divided, and it's the people who have been left to suffer. Burdened by debt, by irrational government spending, beset by growing criminal activity, their cities burning with social unrest and police violence, every year their money becoming more and more worthless. The country stands on the brink, the people calling out for something new, and it was the new founding fathers of America who answered. They presented themselves as a party free from the past burdens of either the Republicans or the Democrats. They promised a chance for change, a chance for stability, and a rebirth of the American dream. Such messaging resonated with those disaffected individuals, those who believed America was failing, and backed by the financial support of the NRA, the new founding fathers nominated their first presidential candidate. They ran on a platform promising to restore that American dream, to invest in scientific development, to promote a sustainable environment and a robust support for civic responsibility and personal security. They won with a groundswell of support from across the political spectrum, and President Bracken set to work immediately to address America's woes. And yet, his proposed solution to end the nation's suffering to many appeared disconnected from its major issues. His solution, a purge, an annual event in which the public would be free from the nation's laws, free to release their aggression, a day that would serve as a relief valve for the nation's growing animosity. Or at least that was how the new founding fathers presented the purge to the public. Its true purpose connected far more closely to the nation's issues. The legalization of most activities was believed to alleviate the problems besetting the nation through a decimation of socially undesirable populations. The dregs of society who relied on costly social programs, that it would promote economic growth through an annual reconstruction and through the sale of security and defense-related products, that it would result in a reduction of crime, as such individuals were far more likely to participate and to perish in the event, and perhaps to promote a growth in civility, a public ever fearful that should they wrong their neighbor or their fellow citizen, that they would be held to account. From its very conception, this proposed purge was criticized and attacked, both by domestic opposition and international leaders, as barbaric. To lend credence to the party's claims, an independent behavioral analyst was brought in to oversee an experiment scheduled to take place on Staten Island. This island was chosen both for its sizable and diverse population, but also, being an island, it would be far easier to restrict this experiment to a singular location, limiting the impact on neighboring areas. Nominally, this experiment was supported by the local population, with a majority of voters approving the measure. To an extent, this support was gained by offering financial compensation, offering $5,000 as a base support and even more for those that actively participated. Not only that, but most of the voting centers were located in the city's poorest districts, further incentivizing these individuals to vote and to participate. Regardless of the cause for support, the project moved forward. To ensure proper oversight, a network of security cameras, a fleet of drones, and recording eye lenses were all established and provided to the populace. Tracking devices were implanted to ensure that the participants remained on the island, and all of this was to ensure that footage was collected for analysis and to promote this idea to the nation at large. When the First Purge began, it started incredibly slowly, with only minor crimes being reported, and the only violence coming from a deranged individual, with most of the island's inhabitants treating it as one big block party. Yet, in the early morning hours, there was an incredible spike in violence, one that seemingly defied all behavioral models, and somehow in the course of this violence, the behavioral analyst was killed. Despite this small hiccup, the NFFA saw the program as an immense success, broadcasting the violence as proof that the public had been waiting their entire lives for such an experience, highlighting to the press and the public the overwhelming participation and making clear that the party was interested in expanding this experiment nationwide, using the same financial and manipulative strategies to engender participation. To ensure the success of this second experiment, new infrastructure and new laws were adopted. The most crucial of such changes was the construction of siren towers, built roughly every 3.7 blocks, to ensure that all people would be aware of both the beginning and the end of the purge. They constructed a vast network of security cameras across the country, established the video analytics department to oversee not only these public networks, but also those privately owned and operated, extending as far as to individual cell phone cameras. This department worked regularly with local police and emergency services to ensure that any crimes committed outside the purge were to be fully prosecuted. And perhaps most importantly, the passage of the 28th Amendment to the Constitution, enshrining in the law of the land that people were guaranteed their yearly right to purge, and codified what few laws remained active during the period of the purge, namely restrictions on the grade and classification of weapons that may be used, and protection of the political establishment and emergency services. Over subsequent years, the exact rules would be adjusted and periodic debate would be raised, making purge expenses tax deductible, raising the age requirement to actively participate in the purge, and allowing the states the freedom of action to pass their own local purge ordinances and laws. By 2019, the new founders proclaimed the purge a success. They back these claims with new data, highlighting falling unemployment, the consistent fall in crime, and a booming economy driven by purge-adjacent industries, security systems, weapons, and environmentally conscious means of cleaning up blood. As a direct result of the party's success, the Democratic and Republican parties effectively ceased to operate. That same year, an NFFA-dominated Congress took up and passed the Contributing Citizens Provision of 2019, a package of bills that continued previously established laws protecting against employer discrimination, but clarified that such protections only applied to contributing citizens. Further, all such citizens were to be guaranteed universal health care, save for injuries accrued during the purge under the subsequent Purge Injury and Disabilities Act. The passage of the 29th Amendment streamlined the nation's legal system. This, combined with a vast network of cameras and the zealous participation of police during the purge, effectively made trials unnecessary. On a social level, the new founders sought to further entwine the purge and American culture. The government sponsored purge preparation programs in every school, and through the American Historical Act, highlighted the pre-purge ills of American society, how angst and failed policies had nearly brought about the end of America, and how the purge had been America's salvation. They funded children's program, radio broadcast, and religious sermons, each emphasizing to the public the importance and the necessity of purging. They took these steps further as they attempted to make the purge into a true national holiday, befit with its own traditions. The blue baptisia was chosen as the holiday's symbol, its blue color a symbol of the NFFA, and the baptisia, the baptism, affirming the rebirth of America. Throughout Purge Night, individuals, groups clung to their own traditions, their own rules for conducting the purge, each person purging for their own reasons. Vengeance, ambition, religious purity, or perhaps self-affirmation. And as that morning siren sounded, citizens engaged with their community to ensure bodies were properly cleaned up and solemn displays were constructed commemorating those who were now gone, those who made the ultimate sacrifice to make America a better place. So successful were these efforts that other countries openly debated implementing their own purge. And each year, each purge was said to be bigger and more successful than anything that had come before. As more and more indulged each year, society changed. Behavior that was once considered unthinkable became commonplace. Empathy grew more distant, and cruelty and disregard for human life far more common. The facade of the old morality breaking down a little more each year. The purge spread like a virus. Those impacted by it, losing loved ones to it, suffering harm during it, driven, motivated to either hate the purge or to inflict those very same harms upon another. And when evidence of this began to emerge, discrediting the party orthodoxy, a report outright highlighting that the violent acts of purging were indeed fueling a greater violence in society, such research was forcefully buried. When any news stories emerged, claiming rising violence, claiming murder, or any other such crime, they were discredited, labeled as nothing more than conspiracy theories, or otherwise buried. The power of the party continued to grow, their influence spreading across multiple fronts. For the corporate elites, especially those already members of the NFFA, it became the norm to host purge parties, using such events to negotiate business agreements and to entice their peers to join the party. So too did the party seek to influence celebrities, using Hollywood as yet another venture to normalize the changing social values. Yet the disproportionate impact of the purge on low-income individuals, on women, on minorities all contributed to a bubbling resentment, to a growing resistance against the purge and against the NFFA. In 2023, the countdown timer for the purge was hijacked. A broadcast called on the public to resist the purge, to fight back against the NFFA, but of course officials were quick to investigate this video, and per their reports, it traced to a lone individual with no backing and no movement. Their statements clearly designed to keep any who would oppose the purge disorganized and isolated. To strengthen their support and keep their opposition afraid, the party regularly employed mercenary forces, loyalty squads, and hate groups to target their opposition on Purge Night. They continued efforts to reduce the burden of socially undesirable individuals, using any means available, including religious institutions to prey upon drug addicts and vulnerable and neglected teens, promising them a path forward, seemingly caring about them, and teaching them that when the time comes, it is their salvation to offer themselves for cleansing to the purgers. Despite these efforts, the party's hold on power began to slacken. An increasing number of purgers targeted social elites and prominent party supporters. Still worse for the party's public standing, stories emerged of party officials executing a whistleblower on air, outside of purge hours, lending credence if not outright confirming the claims that the party was actively targeting their opposition. While the party was quick to claim such recordings were fabrications, and many of their loyal followers were quick to accept this, for more and more people, this recording was an incitement to question the status quo. By 2040, an independent candidate by the name of Charlie Rowan was openly campaigning to end the purge, a position deemed unacceptable by the NFFA leadership. As such, they moved to change the rules for the upcoming purge. Nominally, these changes were conducted in the interest of fairness, to hold that the rich and powerful of society were equal to the common men and women that made up the country. Unofficially, these changes were made to engage in spring cleaning the country from its rebel elements, both within the public and within the government. Mercenaries, loyalty squads, whatever could be mustered was deployed against these dissidents. And their efforts could not have backfired more horrendously. The reigning president was killed, their candidate captured by resistance fighters, and several months later, Rowan winning in a landslide election, ending the 25-year reign of the NFFA. Her immediate actions sought to undo the work of the party, utilizing the powers of her office to curtail and limit the purge. These efforts met with mixed results, challenged at every level by party members in Congress and state governments, and challenged by pro-NFFA groups. Rampant nativism, supported by a generation raised on the notion that the purge had been America's saving grace, seeing new and old problems returning, immigration, media distortion, growing racial tension. For them, there was but one choice: a return of the purge. While some within the party urged caution, concerned by the rising tension within the nation, the majority of the NFFA saw this as their chance to restore themselves to power, to cleanse the nation of dissent. And as with so many previous purges, that night showed record participation, surpassing all previous purges in its body count. And when the morning light came and the sirens sounded ending the purge, the violence did not stop. Fighting persisted, some driven by an ideological desire to purify their nation. Some were just so broken that they saw this ever-after purge as the ultimate embodiment of freedom. And for others, this was a fight for their very survival against a nation gone mad. The government declared martial law, mobilized every element of its security forces, police, National Guard, the army to bring about an end to the violence. America's cities became war zones. And while disorganized, the purgers successfully drove back government forces. All the while, fearful Americans flooded the nation's borders with Canada and Mexico, both of which moved to lock down their frontier with the United States, only giving these refugees 6 hours to escape a collapsing country. With the nation in flames and government forces, by all accounts, being overwhelmed, it appears that the new founding fathers are being consumed by their very creation. What is to become of America is anyone's guess. Perhaps it will be reduced to a barren wasteland, all life snuffed out, yet it is equally likely that other nations will not stand idly by as America drowns in chaos, motivated either by their humanitarian ideals or perhaps the more practical desire of preventing the nation's nuclear arsenal from falling into the hands of purgers. It might yet rally to restore peace and order, and America would truly be a nation reborn, baptized in fire and in bloodshed.